If you would like a handout with the 15 writing prompts, go ahead and enter your email address into the chat. That can go either directly to myself or to Amanda, and we will send you those writing prompts as well. Okay, so now I know that. Oh, and Amanda, did anyone happen to say anything before we officially started as far as if there were questions? Did I miss anything else on mic?
No, I did not hear any.
Okay, super. So welcome to this edition of Tuesdays at 2. I'm Antoinette LaGrossa, and if you are helping a young writer, someone who is just starting off, or elementary or middle school, then we are going to have some wonderful suggestions for you, tips on helping them to further develop their writing skills, as well as 15 fun writing prompts. And so, hello in Indiana. I was just out that way. Generally, I was in, where was that? Missouri just a couple of weeks ago, and a couple of weeks from now, we'll be in Cincinnati, Ohio. So kind of right next door to where you are. Okay, if you are new to Shiller Learning or homeschooling, do check out the Shiller Learning blog. We have a wonderful amount of resources that are free. There's a treasure trove of free resources on there, as well as our math and language arts curriculum, full curriculum with books, manipulatives, music, everything, as well as some really nice price point supplemental downloadable resources in the activity pack section. So explore all of that. And we're going to go ahead and dive right in. Something to keep in mind is the type of writing that your child is doing, because there's going to be different things that you want to focus on in those different types. So generally there are 4 different kinds of writing. The first one being descriptive, and that's going to provide detailed visualization, whether it's an event, a character, a situation, a place. And that's going to focus on including that precise detail throughout. Some examples of that are poetry, fiction, scripts, things of that nature. Expository, that's going to be writing with the goal of informing. So one of the examples of that is going to be a book report, a history book, the a how-to, a step-by-step narrative. This tends to be a child's first type of writing, because as humans, we are natural storytellers, and we are going to focus in a lot on those storytelling skills today. But the tips are going to be able to be applied to other things as well. And so narrative, that's going to be autobiography, fantasy stories. Then we have persuasive. And with that, we are looking to influence the reader. So maybe a complaint letter, that's often a beginner piece of writing that the student can do for that with the persuasive goal in mind. But examples of this are going to be advertising, reviews, newspaper opinion columns, or of course those complaining letters. If your child makes a purchase, by the way, if you're ordering something for your child online and you're getting those email solicitations for the review, it's a great opportunity, even if your child isn't spelling or writing yet, to develop that narrative, the oral telling of what they would be putting in writing. Because we develop those oral skills before we develop the writing skills. And so, having fully developed those before the child is having to rely on writing to explore them is going to be really beneficial for all types of these. So, just keep in mind, you know, those four types of writing, and that when you see an opportunity for your child to give that to you verbally, um, seize on that. Narrative is going to be the natural way that kids are developing their storytelling skills. And one of the first ways that we can start to develop those muscles is to ask our child to retell a story to us and ask them to simply retell you the story in your own words. It is okay if the student needs to either hear the story again if you're the one reading it to them, or if they need to reread it if indeed they have become a reader. And if you find that they can't recall the details, you can ask, would you like me to read it again? Or, would you like to read that selection again? The important thing is that we're retelling or they're rereading until they are able to pull those details out. So this is going to both help develop reading comprehension, as well as those storytelling skills. And again, it's okay if it has to be reread several times. Lots of things are happening in the student's brain, and the student is achieving closure when that's happening. To keep yourself from getting bored or frustrated with that rereading or retelling, you know, be sure to observe how the students' listening skills change each time. And remember how important that observation is in education and Montessori in particular. The story doesn't have to be exactly the same in their retelling, because remember, they're retelling it in their own words, which is going to help them with developing sentence structure, word selection, the descriptive language that they're using, their action words. So it doesn't have to be exactly the same. You just want the gist. Now, if they are embellishing on the story, retelling it a different way, that is awesome too. As long as the student is aware of the changes that they have made to the story. And so you can simply ask some questions to clarify that. As you're going through, if you're finding that they're a little hesitant in where to start with retelling that story in their own words, go ahead and ask questions about it. So, did something sad happen in the story? Um, who were the characters in the story? What character did you like best and why? You can ask, which came first in the story, about different events. And then as the child starts retelling and they get that skill under their belt and they're now able to retell that story, then you can ask a question like, how could the story have been different? Or, is there, would you have liked the character to have behaved a different way? Or how would you have behaved in that same situation? What would you have done? And it gets them to think creatively, starting with the base of a story that's already written and how they can potentially change it. All of these things are designed to help the child to become first a better speaker, and to develop those storytelling skills, which will ultimately help them become a better writer. And again, this is a wonderful activity for kids who aren't even reading yet, let alone writing, but it is helpful for students all along that writing journey. This is going to help them perfect um, weaving that tale and help with that reading comprehension. You can even ask, do you think the questions that I'm asking are helping you to become a better storyteller? And that's designed to help the student develop self awareness. These activities, by the way, this in particular, you are going to find throughout the Learning Language Arts Kit A, which is the first 2 years of language arts. That's going to have phonics, reading, spelling, developing those storytelling skills, and reading comprehension, along with a whole host of other things. It's important to help make your child aware of the power in storytelling, and that when you tell a story well, good things happen. People will feel entertained, people will feel more knowledgeable, you will feel more powerful. You can actually make change happen in the world through your writing. And when a student realizes that writing is simply not a busy task or a mundane task that is something they have to check the box off for and they feel zero passion about, uh, letting them in on the secret that writing is something that really affects the world in so many different ways. And being able to develop writing skills is going to, help them in a lot of different areas. So all four of those, let your child in on that secret. We also want the student to be able to develop, you know, confidence in their storytelling. And that's going to happen through that verbal storytelling, that oral storytelling that we are talking about. And even before your child begins to be able to actually write out words, you can then, once they've mastered that oral storytelling, start to take dictation and write that story down for them. And they can then begin the editing process even before they are able to write. But again, that holds true all throughout um, elementary as well as middle school, that you can occasionally throw in where the child is dictating and you're writing it. You may find that they are more descriptive, more imaginative, and they're willing to take more risks and be more pensive in their writing and their word selection than they would be if they were writing it themselves. And then once you've dictated it again, they'll have a great starting point for uh, doing that editing and deciding how they want to make things better and rearranging things to get it just right. Okay, another activity that you can do with your child to stress that importance of being able to show the reader as opposed to telling the reader is to have them actually act out and show you things through their facial expressions and their body movements. And so you can ask them, so can you show me yourself being thrilled about something? And then once they've acted that out, now tell me a story about a time you were thrilled, and have them, think back to how they acted it out and being able to describe that in the character as opposed to just telling the reader that the character is thrilled. And do that with a whole host of different um, emotions. Again, this is one of those activities that you're going to find in different places in that language arts kit A, and it's going to be really effective for getting that student to see the difference between showing the reader and being able to tell them. That multisensory acting those things out is also going to help to store that information about that technique in additional places in the brain. It also helps to burn off the energy, and it's a nice break from the seat work that writing usually is. Okay, we also want to be sure that our child knows what the elements of a good story are, and be sure to include those. Of course, vivid descriptions that are going to be able to show that reader as opposed to telling them. Uh, Rhyme is also something that is very pleasant to either hear being read aloud or being included in a story. So that's something else that's nice to include. Now, if your child is doing a poem or even trying to include some rhyming into a narrative that they're creating, remember from the session on movable alphabet that you can create all of the word endings and then just simply go through and try the different beginning letters or blends to find all of the rhyming words that go with a particular word. So that's a nice support for doing that. Suspense, leaving a hole in the story where where the reader is left wanting to keep reading and find out what is going to happen next. Now, interesting little known facts. These are things that are great in all of those types of writing, specifically that narrative as well as the expository writing. And then you want to be sure that your story has a proper beginning, middle, and end. Um, if they are writing to answer a question, uh, if they're writing an essay that is done off the prompt of a question, you also want to be sure that they know to start that off with a restatement of the question, which makes it really easy for them to start writing the answer to that. Okay, but going back to that story and being sure that it has all of those elements, including that beginning, middle, and end, the story mountain, which is used in language arts kit B, that is going to really help them to learn what makes a good story. This is a wonderful illustration for the child to picture all of those different elements of the good story. So the story mountain describes the start, the rise, the fall, and end of a story. And the beginning of the story is how the story starts. That's going to be your base camp. So, how is this story starting? Then the climb up the mountain is what happens along the way to the high point of that story. The peak, of course, is going to be the most exciting part of the story. That is that climax. And then the climb down the mountain is what happens on the way to the resolution of the story, that conclusion. The new base camp is how the story ends. It says what is different from the beginning of the story. Now, when doing the story mountain, highly recommend that your child selects and reads a short story that is a that you use good classic literature. And then, they'll read that, retell it in their own words for each part of that journey along that story mountain. The reason you want to be sure to include classic literature is because reading good literature helps students to become good writers in a couple of ways. It's exposing them generally to richer vocabulary as well as more complex um, grammar. And that is the reason why the in language arts kit B, for the selected assigned reading that's included, those included literature selections, they are older uh, classic literature that's going to meet all of those things. Of course, aside from that, your student is then able to choose additional things of interest, but you want to be sure to have a mix um, of that classic literature as well as um, things of the child's interest or that you would like the child to read. But those classic selections are going to generally be more complex than much of the contemporary literature. Okay, so this is a nice guide. Also in Language Arts Kit B, when your child is doing literary analysis, writing book reports, we start off with book report guides that are going to guide them through pulling out the information. Now, on the screen here, you'll see that the book report guide from book 5 is a single page. Then book 6 would have additional information so that we're not overwhelming the child with the amount of information, the amount of writing that we want them to do. So you're going to do that graceful transition from that oral storytelling and doing that dictation to guiding them through writing things out. And when the writing serves a specific purpose, such as a book report, you can actually have a guide such as these. And book 6 has them pulling out a little more, book 7 more, and by the time you get to book 8, you'll see that there are 2 pages of information that the child is pulling out. And they can use this for all of their book reports. It's a great support for the student. Language Arts Kit A, by the way, is our featured kit right now. And that let's see, through the 17th is going to be $50 off. So a really nice special on that. And then starting the 18th, the Language Arts Kit B is going to be featured. So cluing you in on a little advance of that coming sale. Okay, so writing prompts. Writing prompts are wonderful. They are, a nice way of helping your child launch off with their writing. It is recommended that for writing, frequency is very important. And making time every day for writing, and when your child is younger, even before they're writing, you can make time for that with journaling. In Montessori, you see nature journals, and that's, a very important part of the day. In our summer activity pack, by the way, Amanda, if you can also plug into the chat the link for the summer activity pack. In there, it gives you some ideas for nature journaling, different settings that you can take advantage of. And that is going to, from the time your child is very young, they can start journaling with pictures, with collecting things that they find outside. And then as they learn to read and spell words, they will be thrilled and proud to add those words to their picture journaling. And then that can expand from there. But frequency with writing is important. A great way of starting that is with the journaling and providing, a block of time on a daily basis for the child to read. You want to provide a quiet space for writing. It can be distracting, if there is a lot going on, if you really don't have space for a quiet area for the child to write, noise canceling headphones can be really handy for that. And then you want to be sure that you are recognizing the child's progress, whether it is they've gone from picture journaling to now they're adding, when they go from picture journaling to adding words to that, recognize that progress and make note of that. It's that recognition is going to spur them on and want to, make additional progress on those things. And then again, start with that oral storytelling, then the dictation, and going to handwritten pieces. They can also um, certainly type, use a word processor, but there is definitely benefit, especially if they're writing in cursive. Uh, there is a flow that can happen there when students are writing in cursive. Additional things are happening in the brain. So, first off, highly recommend that you do teach cursive. I know in some programs that is going the way of the past and it's no longer being included, but the brain science on cursive is really wonderful. It's a great thing to teach your child and can also help them with their writing. One of the things that you can use for a writing prompt is pictures. That's a great way to start with the writing prompts, just like your child started writing with pictures, is that you can show them a selection of pictures, maybe, 3 or 5 of those, and they can, select one of those and make up a short story using one of those pictures. So it's a great random way of getting your child on the spur of the moment to create a story. And then you can also, once the child is telling you the story, tell them that just like you had asked questions about their retelling of the story, they can ask you questions about the story that they have just told you. And that role playing has some nice benefit to it. And you could even at the end of that ask, do you think the questions that you're asking me has helped me to become a better listener? The circle time posters, by the way, the posters for the shapes as well as the colors have a really nice selection of pictures, and they are also the perfect amount of images to use as writing prompts. So maybe, if your child is working on learning to spell the word purple, or early on just identifying that, you can use that poster for purple for select one of these pictures and tell me a story about it, uh, or the shapes. So circle time posters, that's another use for those. They are, by the way, we just launched those. If you did not see that product launch, they're actually 50% off right now. And you're going to love this bundle. Amanda, remind me how many pages are in this. This is a wonderful bundle. It's got the letters, and they're also in the Montessori red and blue for vowels and consonants. So you've got the letters. Oh, the letters, by the way, also have pictures that you can use as story prompts. And I'm not so sure. So yeah, so I think it is right around there. It's like 190 some pages. There are also bonus student activity books that go with these black line books. Um, for the student to be coloring and tracing different things. They also they it's a digital download. So as with all of the digital things, it's a really nice price point that makes it so that, no matter what curriculum you're using, it makes a wonderful addition and they are really affordable. So it's got letters, colors, shapes, numbers, as well as the sign language alphabet. Oh, and days of the week and months of the year as well. Okay, so now we've used pictures as writing prompts. Then you can use actual writing prompts. Now, kids, if you've not noticed, you probably have though, kids like to talk about themselves. We all do, right? So the first group of writing prompts that we are going to look at is asking the child to write about themselves. And pretty much everyone is going to be interested in telling their own story. So you can ask them, what's your earliest memory? And urge them to include every detail, even if they think it's something that they will remember forever. Um, I don't know if you've noticed, but I definitely, from my own experience, have realized that those memories don't always stay with you the way you think they will with all of those details. So it's really going to be a wonderful keepsake to your child to have those. Okay, if you had the power to change one thing about the world, what would you change and why? What is something you would like to invent? What problem does it solve? Who does it help? Whose life does it change? What is the funniest thing you have experienced? A version of this too could be, what is the funniest thing you have done? Describe your best friend and 5 reasons they are special to you. What would your perfect homeschool day look like? And this is also going to be something that gives you potentially insight into your child, um, and their homeschooling experience that you may not have had. And again, these are all going to be wonderful keepsakes for your child to look back on when they are older. Now, what 3 pieces of advice would you like to give to your younger self? These are also, I think, writing prompts that we as adults can use for journaling. So these would be things you wish you better understood or knew about when you were younger. This is also going to help the child to become self-aware of the fact that, you know, looking back and reflecting, okay, I thought I knew and understood everything then, but I really didn't. And I've got greater depth of understanding now. And between that and this next question, what 3 things do you want your older self to remember? Things you feel adults do not understand about children and would want to remember when you yourself are an adult. It can just help them to become aware of, everyone's at a different place in life and has a different perspective. So it can help them be, give more grace to the people around them, as well as become more reflective in their own experiences and decisions that they are making. What is your favorite holiday tradition? group of writing prompts. So those were about the child, and then these are going to get those creative juices flowing. So some of these you can use like a story starter, or you can give, detailed questions, and we'll look at some different ones. So three friends are stranded on a small muddy island. The boat they used to cross the river is now leaking and the sun is going down. They use that as the launching off point and continue with that story. Your character is about to break some big news. Is it happy or bad news? How will they deliver it? Are they anxious or excited about delivering it? Why do they feel that way? How is the news received? Okay, so the digital format, I'm sorry, I misunderstood that question. So yes, the language arts, the digital kits are a wonderful option for those. If you already have all of the materials, there's also printable manipulatives that come with them. The digital kits for Language Arts Kit A, Language Arts Kit B, generally Language Arts Kit B is going to be 1st through 4th grade for most kids. But those also have the songs. So there's 28 language arts song downloads. With each of those, you're getting the MP3s. If you don't have the wooden grammar symbols that are used in Kit B, you can print those. There's a printable version. As always, for printable, when you're printing manipulatives, excuse me, we recommend printing those on cardstock simply because it is going to be a better user experience for the child than just plain paper. It's just a better feel. Okay, and then your family is hoping for a big harvest this year. You're digging planting holes in the vegetable garden and find a golden nugget. And you notice that a lot of these, they're adventure kind of prompts. So when a beginner writer is getting started with putting things to paper, adventure is something that kids often really enjoy and is more natural for them to start in their creating a fiction, those adventure kind of stories. So your character has just regained consciousness. They can't remember who they are, where they are, or how they got there, but a battle is raging. Someone is coming. And then they take it where they want to. So writing prompts, you see, they can be a lot of fun. It's a beautiful day. Two friends are sitting on the bank of a stream. One of them looks up at the sky and says, so is this going to be, a tragedy adventure, or is this going to be like a really happy, exciting venture? It's giving you that start, and then your child is able to take it where they want to. And our final writing prompt, you'll also find writing prompts in the language arts kits, but our final one for today is imagine suddenly finding yourself in the past. You live next door to a famous historical figure. If they have a favorite inventor or a favorite historical figure, you could even, suggest who it is, or you could leave it open-ended where they get to decide. Write about a significant event in that figure's life with a modern day twist due to your influence. A couple of final notes on helping your student work into self-analysis of their work, and that is to question your child to prompt them in their self-reflection on how the story could be improved. If you told the story again, would you do it any differently? That is a great question to ask. Why did you choose that particular thing for the character, whether it's a decision or a trait. Um, Also, what do you think of your work? Excellent question that can get them to think critically about their own work, how they may want to change it, how they may want to make it better in the future. I think you're going to find all of these tips, as well as the writing prompts, are going to help your budding storyteller to develop that skill. So make time on a daily basis for your child, whether it's journaling with pictures or writing with words or a combination of those. Doing that is going to, help to reinforce to your child writing is important and give them that regular space for developing those skills and potentially changing the world with their writing. Did anyone have any questions that we did not get to during the session? And yes, I think uh, the chat is a little weird today. Okay, so we have some email addresses that we will be sending those prompts to. If you're watching the replay of the session on YouTube, you can go ahead and just request the writing prompt handout email blog at shillerlearning.com, and we will happily send those to you. A sample lesson plan. Yes, there is a homeschool freebie bundle that has samples of both of those language arts kits. If you go to that item page also, if you go to the page for Language Arts Kit A, you'll see links to see inside the books, and you'll be able to see sample lessons from all of those. So that's for Language Arts A or Language Arts B. But if you go to, we also have that homeschool freebie tab, and there is a homeschool freebie bundle. There's a button for that, and that's going to give you scores of both math as well as language arts lessons. Plus, if you have not gotten our free homeschool parent planner as well as student planner, those are included in the freebie bundle. Highly recommend those, especially the activities on goal setting for the student. Those are going to be really helpful. And the scheduling cards activity, which you can create a card specifically for writing. And that's going to ensure your child has that space blocked out for that.